So if you refer back to the Master Mason ritual of Hiram Abiff, again there are 15 conspirators, 12 who plot the murder out, but only 3 who are elected to kill the man. And these 3 are the military assassins. The other 12 were accomplices in their plot to murder their target. So in the morning, King Solomon has to play all innocent, and he can't find Hiram Abiff, because of course he ordered his men to kill Hiram Abiff and then go hide his body somewhere. So King Solomon summons all his cult members together, and basically the 12 conspirators admit that they helped plan the murder of Hiram Abiff, but they did not carry out the actual murder. So according to this ritual, they are considered innocent. And these little gays have on their little white gloves and their cute white aprons to show just how innocent they all are. So King Solomon then commands them to go find the 3 that actually did the killing and then bring them back, or else the 12 would be held responsible. So the 12 break up into groups of 3, and they head out in every direction. And finally one group locates their 3 brothers who killed Hiram Abiff. And at once the 3 assassins instantly begin to chant aloud to the others the penalty if Freemasons were to go against their brothers. So they're shouting this out real loud. So Jubala, the brother that cut Hiram Abiff's throat, he's chanting the penalty of the oath of an apprentice Mason. Oh, that my throat had been cut, my tongue torn out, and my body buried in the sands of the sea. I had been accessory to the death of Hiram Abiff. Then Jubalo, the assassin who stabbed Hiram Abiff in the heart, chants the penalty of the oath of a fellow craft Mason. And he's yelling out, oh, that my left breast had been torn open, and my heart and vitals taken out, and thrown over my shoulder. I had been accessory to the death of Hiram Abiff. And then Jubalum, the assassin that hit Hiram in the head with a hammer, begins to chant the penalty of the oath of a master Mason. And he says, oh, that my body be severed in 2, and my bowels burnt to ash. I am the one that struck him harder than you both, and it was I that gave the fatal blow. So they all admit to the others what everybody already knows, because everybody already planned this all out together. So they all admit, that they're guilty of killing Hiram Abiff, but they're yelling out these penalty oaths to their brothers. In other words, none of you better forget the oaths that we all took to never go against each other. Otherwise, we'll have your throats cut, your tongues pulled out, your chest torn open, and your guts thrown around, your bodies hacked in 2, and your entrails burnt to ash if you go against our order. So they're essentially warning the other guys, you better not forget the death oaths that we took that would all stick together. So then they all go back before King Solomon, and they all happily admit that they're all guilty. And King Solomon has to make a big show of it and commands all the cult members to take their brothers off to be executed. Then on page 63 of Illustrations of Masonry, it says, here ends this part of the farce. It's a farce or an act. It's something like a joke or an unrealistic situation to all these insiders, to all these cult member brothers. They are not really going to execute their brothers for following military orders to kill somebody, are they? So Hiram Abiff was a master architect, but he was not a member of their cult. The grand master of their cult was King Solomon, who ordered his soldiers to kill Hiram Abiff as a ritual sacrifice. And so by these rituals, ignorant Freemasons are reenacting what the military orders do in secret. And then in the next act of their Freemasonic ritual, 15 Masons are standing there in front of King Solomon, all wearing little white gloves again, denoting innocence. And this represents the same 15 Masons and military guys who were ordered to kill Hiram Abiff and had plotted and conspired to do so. And so if they do what they are commanded to do by their Freemasonic lodges and by the military and the Vatican, they will always be found innocent. They will never be prosecuted, and they can get away with even murder, treason, any crime that they may commit while under orders will be forgiven, and they will always be found innocent. And they'll be sitting there wearing the little white grandmother gloves to prove it. Then in the final act of the Master Mason ritual, again the 15 are broken up into groups of 3, and they all go off to find Hiram Abiff's rotting corpse that they left somewhere to decompose. Then 3 cult members find it, and these are probably the same ones who actually killed him and then hid his body somewhere. And upon finding the decomposing body of Hiram Abiff, the 3 cover their mouths and noses with their hand because the smell is so bad. And this pose of covering their nose with their hand around a rotting corpse is the sign of a Master Mason. Isn't that elegant? What enlightenment! What honor! What beauty! The sign of a Master Mason, returning to a scene of a crime where a great man lies on the ground, rotting, and the sign of the masters of your order is covering up your nose so you don't have to smell his decomposing flesh that you are responsible for. So this is what your craft is into. And this is how the chosen few proceed up the degrees into these higher level military orders. So let's stop here, and I'm going to play an audio recording from William Cooper reading about the Knights Templar ritual, which is the 33rd degree of the York Rite, and what they do in their rituals on their fine level of the craft.
The secret ceremony that George Bush underwent during his initiation was thus. On the day of his initiation, George Bush was conducted through a long, dark passage into an immense hall draped with black. He was able to see by the faint light of sepulchral lamps corpses in their shrouds. The altar, built of human skeletons, stood in the center. Ghostly forms moved through the hall, leaving behind them a foul odor. At length 2 men dressed as specters appeared and tied a pink band of ribbon smeared with blood around his forehead. Upon this was an image of the Lady of Loretto. A crucifix was placed in his hand and an amulet hung around his neck. His clothes were removed and laid upon a funeral pyre in a fireplace, while upon his body crosses were smeared in blood. Then his pedanta were tied with string, that's his genitals. Now 5 horrid and frightening figures, blood-stained and mumbling, approached him and threw themselves down in prayer. After an hour, sounds of weeping were heard. The funeral pyre started to burn, and his clothes were consumed. From the flames of this fire, a huge and almost transparent form arose, while the 5 prostrate figures went into terrible convulsions. Now came the voice of an invisible hierophant, booming from somewhere below as George Bush lay in a coffin naked. The words were those of these oaths which the candidate had to repeat. Quote, "In the name of the crucified one, I swear to sever all bonds which unite me with mother, brothers, sisters, wife, relatives, friends, mistress, kings, superiors, benefactors, or any other man to whom I have promised faith, service, or obedience. I name the place in which I was born. Henceforth I live in another dimension, which I will not reach until I have renounced the evil globe which has been cursed by heaven. From now onwards I shall reveal to my new chief all that I have heard or found out, and I shall also seek out and observe things which might otherwise have escaped me. I honor the aqua tofana. It is a quick and essential medium of removing from the earth, through death or robbing them of their wits, of those who oppose truth and those who try to take it from our hands. I shall avoid Spain, Naples, and all other accursed lands, and I shall avoid the temptation to betray what I now have heard. Lightning will not strike as rapidly as the dagger, which will reach me wherever I may be, should I betray my initiation." Unquote. Now a candelabrum bearing 7 black candles is placed before the candidate, and also a bowl containing what is supposed to be human blood. He washes himself in the blood and drinks a quantity of it. The string around his genitalia is removed. He is placed in a bath to undergo complete ablution. After this, he eats a meal composed of vegetables. At this time, he is given his new name, by which he will be known to all of the others in the order, the Brotherhood of Death. And with the completion of his initiation, George Bush joined all of the male members of his family in a long line of ancestry, traced from Robert Bruce to the modern day. He took his place in the order, the Knights Templar,